Good morning, friends. This is me, your boy Moog, Max Mogren, broadcasting live for you here in beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. This is Wake Up Wyoming for July 6th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's show brought to you by the indomitable Zachary Coons and the rest of the crew over there at Wake Up News on Facebook. Do check us out. Like, subscribe, get notifications, all that good stuff. Also, check out our new page, Wake Up News 2.0, because, a lot of pages get taken down. And you can even sign up to our mailing list. We'll probably start emailing notifications if our pages ever get shut down. But thank you so much for tuning in. Also brought to you by my lovely Patreon subscribers, all 16 of you, ponying up $300-some a month. Thank you all so much. You know who you are. Also brought to you by Dirtbag Vehicle Conversions here in beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. My own business. You're living out of your car. You need a camper rig. Hit me up. I will build you the most comfortable and cost-effective sleeping and storage solution for your vehicle here in, near the wealthiest county in the United States of America, Teton County, Wyoming. A lot of people living out of their vehicles. So my goal, help people make their vehicles a little more comfortable. And of course, today's show brought to you by Earth's ionosphere. Without Earth's ionosphere, we'd all get cooked by the cosmic rays from space. As it turns out, as our dear friend Nikola Tesla reminded us, or let us know really, over 100 years ago, the Earth is a giant capacitor, which is a fancy word for battery. Earth's ionosphere has a positive charge. Earth's crust has a negative charge. When you see things like lightning, that is the capacitor, the battery, the circuit connecting. Infinite power generation, capable of being generated. I don't know if that's the best idea, but I think it's important to note in these trying times where we hear all this talk about global trade wars and oil prices and, the endless war of terror for oil all over the world, fracking, coal, climate change, all this terror about CO2 and the future and how we're all going to die because it's going to get warmer. But in reality, the solutions to these problems have not been implemented. They've been suppressed. Nikola Tesla told us all the way back in the 18th century, electrical power is everywhere present in unlimited quantities and can drive the world's machinery without the need for coal, oil, gas, or any of the common fuels. Now, you might not be smart enough to understand that. Maybe I'm not. Maybe Tesla was just talking out of his ass, but I think he probably wasn't. And, next time you turn on a light switch, thank Nikola Tesla, because he was the unsung hero that electrified the world. Maybe a good thing, maybe not, when we talk about electrosmog and all that stuff. What's up, everybody? Getting into it today. We got a big show. But again, I thought this was worth sharing today, the Tesla thing, because we live in this world where the media is not playing with a full deck. Our leaders are not playing with a full deck. Corporations not playing with a full deck. A case in point, we're told to be terrified of climate change. We're told that CO2, we're told oil and gas and coal are so necessary, but we need to get off them, and we need to figure out some magical way to decrease human dependence on fossil fuels. Well, the solutions are already out there. Don't believe the hype from the mainstream. And remember, they're not playing with a full deck. So it's up to us to kind of spread actual awareness. Everybody tuning in here, lots of great comments. Paolo's telling me this is fake. I don't know, man. Earth's a capacitor, ionosphere, positive charge. Earth's crust, negative charge. Lightning, a prime example of that. Lightning in super duper slow-mo. I'll show that to you. You can see this lightning is originating up in the atmosphere. This is just the little precursor, right? And notice here, this little lightning right here, as soon as it hits the ground, the circuit is completed and the charge is fully released. And notice too, that conduit stays open. Again, this is in super duper slow-mo, but the lightning doesn't just disappear. Nikola Tesla, if you studied your history, he figured out a way to create a permanent lightning strike, basically. You can tell me I'm wrong about that, but I don't think so. Moving on to local news, we got 69 viewers. Lunch counter's in. Anybody wants to go surfing, hit me up. I've been surfing my face off lately. Sue Green with an interesting comment here. At the end of the address in the bar above, it says, blah, 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 Notif T live video explicit. Interesting, they are targeting you before you even go live. That is interesting, Sue. Thank you. Sue, we're going to cover your former employer in the show today, too. Sounds like the microchip company that you worked for in Boise, I think it's Micron, I could be wrong, being targeted, the Chinese shutting down their imports. So that is interesting. You guys want to argue physics now? I'm going to just get into the news. We can have a debate about Tesla and Wardenclyffe Tower at another time. But again, the river's down, dropping, but still great for surfing. Hit me up if you want to surf. Also, I'm having a potluck here at my house tomorrow. If you want to come to a potluck in beautiful Alpine, Wyoming, starts at 6:30. DM me for the address. Add me as a friend if we're not friends already. DM me for the address. And yeah, moving on to local news. Again, you know, we cover Jackson Hole news here because, to be honest, most newspapers in this country really suck. Jackson's paper's pretty good, but also Jackson, Teton County, Wyoming, is the wealthiest county per capita in the United States of America. But most people that live there aren't wealthy. It just happens to be where a lot of tax evading billionaires have their vacation homes. So it's a microcosm of a macro problem. And really, you know, kind of a microcosm of our entire world. There's so much incredible beauty in Jackson Hole. So many great people, well-educated people, hardworking people, yet so many systemic structural flaws that make people suffer, that cause the natural world to suffer. Case in point, the county won't press opioid claims alone. Interestingly, the Wyoming Attorney General has come to town and encouraged the county commissioners to unanimously approve a memoranda of understanding that the Wyoming Attorney General's office will do the work when it comes to prosecuting opioid distributors and manufacturers. That differs from counties that have chosen to litigate on their own, like Carbon County and others across the country. The document's purpose, from the perspective of the Attorney General's office, was to advance the effective and efficient investigation of opioid manufacturers and distributors and to avoid the unnecessary duplication of effort and waste of public resources as both parties seek to engage in effective coordination and harmonious cooperation to combat the opioid crisis. So that's what the Wyoming Attorney General is saying. You know, they don't want to waste public resources. Interestingly, I don't think this is really going to benefit the people of Wyoming or Teton County too much because the state of Wyoming has invested $25.5 million into a private opioid, cocaine, and amphetamine factory, Cody Laboratories in Cody, Wyoming. You can't even make this stuff up. Recently, the big news, the governor committed $65,000 to an opioid addiction task force, but at the same time, the state of Wyoming literally investing $25.5 million into a opioid, cocaine, amphetamine, and barbiturate pharmaceutical grade factory, one of the few facilities in the country authorized to import poppy stock, which is basically smack from Afghanistan, protected by U.S. troops. Stranger than fiction. But yeah, you can read this over there at my website, tukadiga.com, if you want to. Just important to note, you know, Wyoming, I was hopeful that Teton County was going to press forward with their proposed ideas of going after the opioid manufacturers. Now the state of Wyoming seems to be taking the lead on that. Unfortunately, the state of Wyoming's approach to the opioid crisis seems to be increasing the production capacity of an already existing narcotic production facility from 5 metric tons annually to 25. You know, what is it? Quintupling the production there. So interestingly here, good quote here. At a time when more than 160 Americans are perishing every day from the false claims made by opioid manufacturers, and with more than 700 counties across the country now asserting themselves into the opioid fight, including Carbon County, Wyoming, I was discouraged to see our local officials sign the Attorney General's memorandum of understanding without insisting on certain fiscal guarantees for the men, women, and children of Teton County. Okay? Of course, you know, they're suing, going for money there. Moving along, Jacksonville News and Guide covering the recent catastrophe at the Capitol Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland. Journalists are not the enemy. Good little editorial here. In this digital age of information overload, Journalism provides a baseline for truth. When partisan politics threaten to divide us, ethical journalism can bring us together. It is reported, fact-checked, questioned, edited, and screened for bias. The News and Guide's core values are truth, trust, excellence, reliability, community. Blah, blah, blah. Journalism will not be silenced. That's true. Here in the independent media, we certainly won't be silenced either. You know, it's interesting. Can't make much of a living as an independent journalist sharing ideas like, maybe geoengineering is a bad idea. Maybe we should look into suppressed energy technologies. Maybe war is just dumb as fuck and we should never be fighting wars ever over anything because it's literally the most counterproductive and destructive thing that we could ever possibly do. But, those opinions aren't really welcome in the mainstream press. But you're right. Journalists are not the enemy, especially the real ones. Moving along here. Speaking of people, social media, here's a lesson here. Oh, there's a lesson here. A real good lesson. I got back from this road trip, and I swear I met all the people I needed to meet on this road trip, had great conversations. And I met this guy, older guy, old ski bum guy, Donner Summit ski area. I had a beer with him, shot the shit. And he said, the new God isn't money. It's these smartphones, and it's social media. And people are so wrapped up in it that they can't even put, can't even put it down when they're driving. And they base their entire lives around social media, and they do dumb shit in an effort to get famous. Here, a prime example of that. These are the people who, rest in peace, condolences, but at the same time, I don't feel too much sympathy for these people who literally, they already served jail time for walking around in some very sensitive areas in Yellowstone National Park. You can see this picture here, Alexei, standing on the edge of the crater, Yellowstone National Park's Grand Prismatic Spring. It's a beautiful spot. You're really not supposed to go there, but just for the sake of social media whoring, these guys did that. They did jail time for it, and they died screwing around at the top of a waterfall, falling 100 feet down a waterfall in British Columbia. Normally, I try to be pretty respectful when people die, but these guys didn't have that much respect for the natural world. And clearly social media whores, if you will, and so you reap what you sow. Moving along, more local news. Should Snow King Mountain's expansion plans include a climbing gym? Absolutely. Right. It says a lot about Jackson Hole that here in a town with some of the best climbers and alpinists in the world, we don't have a climbing gym. The old one by Kmart, the old Teton Rock gym, shut down, moved over to Driggs. The new one, ridiculously overbuilt and large and inconveniently located south of town, turned into an auto dealership, one of many auto dealerships in Jackson now. So yeah, we could use a climbing gym. Please go over there and vote. More local news, briefly. Sad to see room rates climbing at Yellowstone hotels. They're letting them just crank up the rates there. To put it into perspective, if you're an American citizen, you want to go see your national parks, it's getting a little more expensive. They're charging you $25 a night now for a backcountry camping permit in some of the parks. And these hotels in Yellowstone, Yellowstone Flagship Logs Lake Hotel were up between 20 and 25% for a stay this Friday. A year ago, a room on the hotel's backside cost $379, but was going for $456 as of Monday afternoon. A room with a view at Yellowstone Lake the same day was $399 in 2017, but this Friday it was priced at $506. Yeah, so I don't know about y'all, but I've never spent more than $120, $140 on a hotel room. And if you want to stay at a nice place in Yellowstone, it's going to cost you $500 friggin' dollars a night now. I just got back from a 2-month road trip. Proud to say, didn't stay in any hotels. Slept inside once and only paid to camp a handful of times. It's still possible to live pretty free out there these days. So I encourage y'all to do so. Speaking of people trying to live free, interestingly, wow, this is big news. It's funny, I actually wanted to talk about this. This came out recently. Good example of your government incompetence and wastefulness and disgraceful failures to fulfill the basic tasks that they're supposed to fulfill when it comes to managing the national forests. There are these new camping rule changes, most notably at Curtis Canyon area. For those that aren't familiar with the region, a lot of people are stuck camping up Curtis Canyon in the summertime. to just to live, right? And I went up there a few weeks ago, shortly after I got home from my road trip. And the road, no big surprise there, the road up to Curtis Canyon, just utterly trashed, almost impassable. And that's the way it's kind of been consistently for at least the last 14 years, as long as I've been in the region. And it's shocking how poorly managed these roads are. Here we are in like this tourist mecca in literally the wealthiest county per capita. And, most of the roads in the National Forest are impassable in anything but a high clearance vehicle. And you're going to beat the snot out of it. Well, what are they proposing there? They're going to make some dispersed camping areas. They're going to plow out a bunch of new road spurs and make people park there. But interestingly, at the Curtis Canyon Overlook and the Wedding Tree area off Gros Ventre Road, the Forest Service is proposing to eliminate overnight camping. It's kind of funny they say that because they already have no camping signs up at the Curtis Canyon Overlook, but that's where a lot of people camp, largely because the road goes to total shit status after that, and frankly, before that. They are popular day use areas, and increased camping is limiting visitors' ability to engage in daytime activities, Marigliano said. Have to disagree. They're definitely popular camping areas with the legions of people living out of their cars. The area crossing the Curtis Canyon Overlook has become a de facto parking area, killing all the vegetation on the site. The Forest Service proposes planting over the area with native vegetation. Those wishing to camp would have to drive farther up the road if they wish to avoid the developed Curtis Campground, which is always full anyway. Okay, so long story short, but don't worry, they're going to fix the road, maybe. Long story short, they're making it more difficult to camp. The road has not been fixed. And now there are these new proposed rules where people have to park in certain spots. How are they going to, if they can't even maintain the existing road, how are they going to maintain all these new spurs? So on and so forth. The whole situation smells a little shady to me. Little tip for the local Forest Service. Here's a great little educational video on how to grade a road with a road grader. Again, over the course of a 2-month road trip, I have to say, the worst roads, I like to avoid highways. I like to avoid traffic. I love driving old dirt back roads. And the worst roads I encountered in Idaho, Nevada, California, Utah don't come close to comparing with the dog shit roads that are not maintained in Bridger Teton National Forest. So how to grade a road. There it is. Moving on, housing. Man, I'm not even going to touch housing today. This is a huge thing. If you want to know more about housing in the Tetons, you can go to last week's News and Guide, and they've got 9 pages. The new Title 16, Town of Jackson Municipal Code regarding housing. Housing rules, 9 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I promise I'll get around to reading all this legal gobbledygook soon. It's cool to see people trying to do something about the housing crisis up in Jackson. And I don't know what the solution is there, but maybe tiny houses. Let people live in tiny houses in their backyards. Or maybe they could do something like open up a campground on the National Elk Refuge right next to town, and then people wouldn't have to drive up to Curtis anymore. I don't know. But my solution to the housing crisis is dirtbag vehicle conversions out here serving Alpine, Wyoming. You need a rig. I'm going to plug my business real quick. You need your rig styled out. Come on out. We use sustainably harvested scrap lumber. Sustainable, organic lumber. To keep your costs low. Oops, that's the wrong one. There's some chemtrail vids from my road trip. But you can see, real simple designs, nothing too complicated, maximizing storage, minimizing cost. Get you styled out, get you living in your vehicle at an affordable price. Make it a little more comfortable, a little more organized. We do all sorts of things. Heck, I can even put a new alternator in your rig. I can do your alignment. I can change your oil, all that stuff. So hit me up. Dirtbag Vehicle Conversions. Free load of laundry and shower with all vehicle conversions for you dirtbags out there struggling to survive in the wealthiest county per capita in North America. Interestingly, you really butt your head against the system sometimes. when you're living out of a vehicle. And fewer than ever Americans would say they are extremely proud to be an American this 4th of July. I know I'm not exceptionally proud. Daniel Rager with a great comment. 2.5 million homeless children right here in our country come before illegals. Just saying. You know, it is funny. I got sympathy for people who are detained at the border, families separated at the border. But the people that the media is making a huge hoopla spectacle about, we're talking about 2,000 people, right? 2,000 people, 2,000 kids. And yeah, those 2,000 kids, they deserve justice. They shouldn't be separated from their parents, right? In a perfect world. They shouldn't even be forced to leave their homes, right? I mean, there's 60. We're going to cover this later. I was going to say the show was brought to you by the number 68.5 because right now, let's see, where is it? Coming from CNBC, the conspiracy theorists at CNBC, a record 68.5 million people were forcibly displaced in 2017, and it's predicted to get worse, right? So, yeah. Ralph Shelton chiming in, speaking of housing crisis, people struggling. There are plenty of houses out there, but not too many affordable ones. He's saying 15 to a house here in Boise. Sad. Joe, you're going to hit me up. Joe, please do hit me up, man. I need some business. And I will cut you a heck of a deal. For me, really, it's more about, well, I know I need to make some money, but I just want to make enough money to get by. And I'm not trying to get rich off these. Just a good opportunity to really have fun, chat with people, get our hands dirty, work on stuff, and take some lumber that would be destined for the pulp factory or the landfill and turn it into, functional solution for modern living. So moving on here, not too many people proud of being an American at the moment. No big surprise there on Freedom Day. It's interesting. Looking at the mainstream media, they make it out like our biggest issues we need to be concerned about are rights for, what is it? LBGT, lesbian, gay. I don't know. I don't even know how to say it all. But yeah, here in America, if you want to cut your own dick off, the government will pay for it. Your health insurance will cover it. But if you step outside the mainstream narrative, you're a conspiracy theorist and people can bully you all they want. It's funny how that works out, right? You can't bully anyone for anything, especially their sexual orientation. But anybody that says, but I don't know, man, I did the research, looked at the basic physics, and I think 9/11 was an inside job. Or, I was looking at the sky, and, it sure looks like somebody's spraying some shit up there. Seems like the weather's all fucked up. Did a bunch of research on the history of weather modification. Sounds like they might be doing something like that. Nah, you're crazy. Crazy person. Or, this Nikola Tesla guy that invented AC power, he kind of had some solutions for the fossil fuel thing. But nah, sorry. You're a crazy conspiracy theorist. It's funny how that works. Moving along. Speaking of history, crazy. This is a good read. I'm going to paste this one in. I'm not going to read it all. The War of 1812. Shocking stuff. Turns out the British didn't actually invade for the War of 1812. It was actually the United States trying to take over Canada, and the war was a great cover for the ongoing genocide of the Native Americans. Of course, there were some issues with the Bank of England. All wars being bankers' wars, financed, both sides usually by the financial superpowers on this planet. But key thing to understand, most people don't know much about the War of 1812. And if you want to get schooled up on that, this is a great read by Major Daniel Sherson, conspiracy theorist over there at Truth Dig, who also happened to be a professor of history at West Point. Active duty major in the U.S. Army, serving military tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so, real smart guy, real qualified historian, much more qualified than myself. Go check that out if you want to. But I'm going to keep moving along with the news because Lord knows there's a lot of it out there. No big surprise here. Prescription painkillers, a new headache for narcotics agencies. A lot of this smack coming from Asia. But interestingly, important to note, in Afghanistan, smugglers use routes to ship opium from the world's main cultivation area for poppies. Output rose 87% to 9,000 tons in 2017 from the previous year due to political instability, a lack of government control, and other factors. Okay, important to note that the United States still controls Afghanistan. Coming from the UN, this is old, November 2017. But I just need to stress this. We talked about this earlier in the show. The state of Wyoming funding a literal smack factory in Cody, Wyoming, with $25.5 million in low or no interest loans. Meanwhile, opium production jumping 87% in 1 year in Afghanistan. That's a big deal. Also important to note, I like to cover this statistic a lot because it really cuts through the spin, that if you look at the history here, oh, I can't get all that. Let me zoom out a little. This little chart says it all. 2001, the Taliban banned opium production, and the production of opium, the farming of opium poppies in Afghanistan, dropped by 90% in 1 year. Then we invaded, ostensibly to go after Osama bin Laden, and now opium production is literally 400%, at least 450% higher than it was in 2002. There's a reason for that. And yeah, it's a bummer. You reap what you sow. Here in the U.S., we got an opioid epidemic. All that opium grown in Afghanistan. You do the math. Speaking of things growing, GMO grass creeping across Oregon. Good read over there at High Country News from June 25th. I'm going to paste that one in. Yeah. Pretty shocking stuff there. Long story short, they're growing this grass for golf courses, right? They want the perfect grass for golf courses. Well, windstorm kicked up, blew the seeds across the river. Next thing you know, they got this GMO grass that is not, you can't spray Roundup on it. Roundup won't kill it. I guess that's why they're growing it, because Roundup won't kill it. But the problem is, grass is grass. Grass will spread, and now there's GMO grass spreading across the great North American continent. Moving along here, French nuclear power station, coming from Defense News. Who flew a UAV dressed like Superman into a French nuclear power station? Well, that was Greenpeace. Okay. Now, important to note, Greenpeace is not really your friend. If you did this, if you flew a drone into a nuclear power station, you'd go to prison. If your organization flew a UAV into a nuclear power station, your organization would get shut down and you'd all go to prison. Why is Greenpeace able to get away with this stuff? It's because Greenpeace is controlled opposition, fake environmentalism. They don't talk about geoengineering at Greenpeace. Moving along here, Scotland, drought. You don't hear about too many droughts in Scotland. Heat wave. Oh, I gotta get into this. Let's see. Where are we at? UK heat wave, more wildfires and food shortages loom as temperatures soar. And of course, all over the Northern Hemisphere, all over the world, extreme heat setting records across the Northern Hemisphere. Now, this is really important, right? A lot of people say, oh, they skew the statistics and blah, blah, blah. And, it's not really getting hotter. But I don't know. It's hard to know who to trust these days. But the important thing to note when it comes to all this climate change talk, all this talk of disasters and droughts and things, is that we live in an era of weather warfare. Okay, geoengineering, proposed mitigation strategies for climate change are literally climate changing technologies. Therefore, people can change the climate. We've had this capability for a really long time. If you have any doubts about that, head on over to see my friends Jim and Dominic over there at weathermodificationhistory.com, weathermodificationhistory.com. Go check out their news archives. We were recently talking, started the show off with a little talk about Nikola Tesla, the electrical nature of Earth's atmosphere, the battery, aka capacitor, that Earth's structure is, the upper atmosphere, the atmosphere, the crust of the Earth, both have different charges. So it's basically like the positive and negative of a battery. And what happens when you bridge the gap between two terminals on a battery, you create a circuit. Well, all the way back in 1914, coming from the Daily Herald in Adelaide, Australia. They were already talking about weather made to order with electrical control. The weather of the United Kingdom could be controlled by a switchboard. That is, if Sir Oliver Lodge has his way. Sir Oliver Lodge devoted the greater part of the Kelvin lecture at the Institute of Electrical Engineers recently to the framing of a program by means of which electricians may tame the storm cloud and provide a deputy for sunlight when mists hang over the land. It goes on and on. But over 100 years ago, right around the time they were tearing down Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, there was already talk of electrically manipulating the weather. Stranger than fiction. Of course, we're told CO2 is a big problem. Yeah, it's a greenhouse gas, but the most powerful, the most important greenhouse gas is water vapor. Any human activities that affect water's behavior in the atmosphere are going to drastically affect the weather and therefore the climate. We usually hear about CO2 as like there's too much. Now, over there in Europe, they don't have enough CO2, which seems really odd to me because, manufacturing CO2 is pretty much one of the easiest things. And it's not difficult to get your hands on a bunch of CO2 and to compress it and put it into cylinders and distribute it around the countryside to various businesses. So I don't really know what's going on with this carbon dioxide shortage over there in Europe, but it seems odd to me. The Metro supermarkets are rationing frozen food as CO2 crisis left them short of dry ice. These are from the end of June. And CO2 shortage could mean animals suffer more at slaughterhouses, campaigners warn. So this is, it's just odd. It's like, why is there a CO2 shortage? Why wouldn't somebody just start producing a whole shitload of CO2? Because it's really a pretty common element. You want some? There you go. I just blew a bunch on the camera. Not in short supply, that CO2. Moving along. Again, you want to see some real history on climate change, weather modification, go over to weathermodificationhistory.com. I can't plug these fine fellows enough. Jim Lee, Dominique Marama, putting in the time, the effort to make a reputable website that just shows reputable old news from long ago, letting us know how far along they were with weather and climate modification technologies decades ago, literally decades ago. It just keeps going on and on. Real fascinating. I don't know about you, but I love these old newspapers. Do check them out. And you can even see the concerns about weather war back in the 40s, 50s. They were all concerned about the Russians as a new weapon. Weather is a new weapon. December 12th, 1953, from the Daily Mercury, Brisbane, Australia. The weather can be used as a military weapon, and someday it may be entirely feasible for the United States to induce torrential rains or prolonged droughts in the Soviet Union. So, keep it in mind when you hear the spin about climate change. We have climate changing technologies that have been used as weapons in the past. Moving along, speaking of, we started the show off with a little talk about Tesla. Of course, we're still stuck on a fossil-fueled energy system, money and energy intricately intertwined. Arguably money is just a way to commodify energy. U.S. oil hits 74 per barrel on concern over Iran sanctions. Okay, trade war. Whoa, international trade war. Well, oil prices are going up. Why? Well, it's the trade war, right? It's the trade war. What else is going on with oil prices? Oh, CNBC also telling us Iran sanctions could soon push oil prices over 90 a barrel. Okay, gosh, we really got to keep those Iranians in line because Lord knows they're going to nuke America at any moment. Not going to happen. We don't have to worry about the Iranians any more than we have to worry about the North Koreans. So what's going on here with the skyrocketing oil prices, skyrocketing gas prices, and this talk of a trade war all over the world? Well, I think they're trying to jack up the price of everything. I think they're trying to make life more expensive in this world because I just think that's what they're doing. Let me get into the trade war some more. More trade war. Who's going to suffer in this trade war? Who is the collateral damage of the trade war? It's everybody that depends on imports, right? This lighter, made in France, a Bic. Well, now it's going to cost more because of the trade war. We're going to jack up the price of everything because we have to. Trade war, right? But there doesn't really need to be a trade war. But it's convenient for the corporate overlords of the planet that, we're going to show those dastardly Iranians, we're going to show those dastardly Chinese by making everything more expensive. Yeah. U.S. government imposes levies on $34 billion of imports. President Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs on every single Chinese import in America as the two largest economies in the world exchange the first blows in a trade war that isn't set to end anytime soon. After months of rhetoric, a 25% levy on $34 billion of Chinese goods entering the U.S. took effect just after midnight Washington time on Friday, with farming plows and airplane parts among the products targeted. China hit back immediately via duties on U.S. shipments, including soybeans and automobiles. Neither side shows any signs of backing down. Trump is already eyeing another $16 billion of Chinese goods and suggesting the final total could top $500 billion, more than the U.S. bought in 2017. So there you go. Suggesting a final total of $500 billion, 25% tariffs on average, let's say, on $500 billion worth of goods. That means the cost of this $500 billion worth of shit imported in the U.S. is going to bump up to $625 billion. And who's going to pay for it? We are, if we buy that stuff. I'm not a big globalist, but at the same time, cheap Chinese crap generally works pretty good, right? If you need some auto parts or something, you can get some cheap Chinese ones that work great. But now, trade war. So, real bummer. Interesting effect of a trade war. It's going to make everything more expensive for you and me, and it's just going to put more wealth and power into the hands of the already wealthy. But the big thing is it's just going to create a colossal distraction for the mainstream media talking head pundits to chit-chat about for the next couple years, right? Now that, Russiagate petered out, everybody's tired of that. The election scandals, we got a little while before the next big election, so we need some news. Let's just have a fucking trade war, and then we'll jack up the price of everything, shove it up all consumers' rectums, and, it's just, we'll create a bunch of dissension and anxiety and frustration, and it's going to make the world a shittier place. But it's going to make some people a lot richer and more powerful. Case in point of this trade war coming home to roost, our dear friend Sue Green, who made me an amazing quilt. I got to go get it. The talented Sue Green out of Boise, Idaho, made me this amazing quilt. Thank you so much, Sue. One of the supporters of the show. Says Wake Up, made out of delightful old, smells good, smells like home. It's my favorite quilt. It's on my bed right now. Thank you, Sue. But Sue used to work at the Micron chip factory there in Boise. And she got laid off. I think they sent a lot of their production over to Taiwan a couple years ago. So I don't know if this is going to really affect jobs in Boise so much, but it's going to affect Micron's bottom line because China just blocked the sales of Micron chips in China. And China accounts for 50% of Micron's revenue, right? Another little bonus of the trade war, let's just bear this in mind, is the people who decide, Donald Trump and homies, or the Chinese equivalent, they can decide, we're gonna jack up tariffs on, let's say solar panels, for example, right? They can, if solar panels are 30% more expensive in the U.S. now because of this tariff, it's going to fuck up the solar industry. They're using the trade war. It's ostensibly on the surface, the trade war is designed to, keep China in check. But in reality, it's a way to effectively dictate policy, right? You can't do solar because it's so expensive. And to kind of front run the markets, right? If you're a Chinese politician who knew that they were going to ban Micron chips, Well, that's going to be a big deal. Ralph Shelton, thank you for chiming in there. I guess they are still making Micron chips there in Boise. Ralph, coming from Boise, letting us know that 600 just got laid off this week here in Boise at the Micron plant. So there you go. Don Neptune Adams succinctly summarizing it. It's fuckery. It's fuckery indeed, right? It's basically insider trading with a dose of jacking up the price of everything on the side to just strangle all fun and beauty out of this planet for the sake of power and profit. Part of the reason they might be doing this is because the economy, the debt-based, money-printed economy, has been slowing down. What better way to make the economy look good on paper while overall consumption of goods and services and healthy food and solar panels and things goes down is to jack up the price of everything, right? We see that in the U.S. with healthcare, where healthcare is absurdly 20% of GDP. Okay, bad shit, but it makes the economy look good on the backs of dead, dying, and sick Americans. Durable good orders down the second month, very ugly numbers, excluding defense, right? There's this talk now. They want to extend the trade war to Germany. The U.S. wants a trade war with Germany. Ralph clarifying there, it was at a call center. Okay, thank you, Ralph. So it might not have been at the Micron factory. It sounds like that was at a call center. But anyway, let's keep moving along here. The trade war, back to the trade war briefly. In the paper today, I saw that they were going after Germany because Germany wasn't spending enough of GDP on their military. They call it defense. I'm going to go ahead and call that military spending, not defense. Cut through the spin there a little. So a trade war proposed against Germany because they weren't spending enough on guns and bombs and killing machines. Sue Green chiming in there. Micron has plants in China, so I don't think it will hurt them. That is why they're moving things overseas to be closer to their market. So we'll see what happens there. The Micron thing will be interesting. But Sue, I'm glad you tuned in today. Great to see you. Thanks again for the quilt. And I'm glad that you're not working at Micron anymore. Hopefully you're doing all right over there in Boise. Moving along, what do we got? Coming from our dear friend Tyler over there at Zero Hedge, published 3 days ago, war spending rescues factory orders in May as autos collapse, right? Great way to get the economy going. War. What else we got? Kind of winding down here today. Inflation rate hits a 6-year high in May, increased to 2%, and the key price gauge shows the growing economy is on healthier footing. It's funny, in the local paper on the 4th of July, I'm going to bust this out just to show you how, spin in action, right? Spin in action in the mainstream media. Jackson Hole News and Guide, business section, 4th of July, right? You want to build a little patriotic fervor on the 4th of July. You want to get people fired up about how great things are in the United States. So what do they say? Investors will also have their eyes Friday on the Labor Department's latest monthly jobs and wage report. Analysts expect the report will show that hourly wages rose 2.8% last month. Okay, wow, 2.8% wage growth last month. That sounds pretty good. But what, it reads like, 2.8% increase in a month. No, that's for the fucking year. Okay, that's for the year. So they make it out like 2.8%, go America. But in actuality, that's for the year. And of course, strangely, but if the hike comes in above 3%, that could be a bad day for the market. The market is paying close attention to wage pressure, very close attention to anything that's going to hurt corporate margins, anything that's going to make the Fed want to quicken the pace and magnitude of interest rate hikes. So what does that mean? Wages go up for Americans. The stock market goes down. Okay, that's what they're saying. And they're lying about the actual wage increases to make it sound like wages went up 2.8% in a month. No, that's for the year. Of course, inflation rising much faster than that. In a surprise, the unemployment rate rose to 4% last month after dropping to an 18-year low of 3.8% in May, the Labor Department said Friday. And this confirms what I said just a little earlier. Hourly wages rose a modest 5 cents to $26.98. The yearly rate of pay increases was unchanged at 2.7%. Okay, that's coming out today. So, the AP republished in the Jackson Hole News and Guide made it out like month-on-month wages were up 2.7%. No, not the case. As for unemployment, they show unemployment at 4%, but if you really look at the shadow stats over there at shadowstats.com, John Williams, Shadow Government Statistics, here's unemployment. You can see it's sitting, that red line is the official, sitting at 4%. The broadest sitting at 7%. But if you want to look at the actual unemployment rate, it's closer to 21.5%. I'm going to paste that in there. If you're not familiar with Shadow Stats, do check it out. Renee Hermes with some interesting comments there. Thank you, Renee. Appreciate that. Moving along. What else do we got here? Goodbye regulations. Hello, impending global financial crisis. Published on the 3rd over there at Truth Out. 10 years after the latest financial crisis, politicians of all stripes have made sure that Wall Street can return to its old ways of doing business by repealing the Dodd-Frank Act, which acted up to now as a very mild regulatory regime to rein in the predatory nature of financial capital. Okay, goes on and on. Long story short, less regulations on the corporations robbing us all. Odds are we could have another impending global financial crisis. I think that's a fact. But don't worry, you might not be doing too well, but the 25 richest families in the world are now worth more than $1 trillion. Of course, the richest family in the world is worth over $1 trillion. They're just really good at hiding their money. Right? The people who have controlled the global financial system for centuries have got a lot more money than $1 trillion. But they're telling us the Waltons of Walmart fame are the richest clan in the world. Hubba, hubba, Alice Walton. Got to go find her up in Jackson. I think she's got a house up there. I'm going to skip this one. What else we got? I'm going to skip that one too. Moving on to cryptocurrency news. Thank you all for bearing with me here. Still a little rusty after, a road trip. Of course, they're still bashing on cryptocurrencies. The rather gluttonous man who is the head of the Bank of International Settlements has bashed them again in a scathing review of its failure as money. No big surprise there. Cryptocurrencies taken no shortage of hits lately since early 2018. And coming from Bloomberg, cryptocurrency virtually outlawed in India as the top court backs the ban. So no shortage of FUD out there, fear, uncertainty, and denial in the crypto space. Looking at the coin market cap, we're sitting at $266 billion. It's been hovering around there for a while. So all-time highs were about $880 billion around the beginning of the year. So huge hits to the crypto space. But, maybe it's double bouncing there. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in cryptos. I do know that the global financial elites are threatened by cryptocurrencies because they provide a way to take the power of money creation away from small cartels and put them in the hands of the entire global internet. So it is what it is. Moving on, speaking of global things, 68.5 million people were forcibly displaced in 2017. Of course, we got a refugee ban here in the U.S. They don't really mention that when they cover it in the newspaper. We don't let that many refugees in, but the U.S. sure creates a lot of them. And Europe seems to be tightening their approach to refugees as well, basically leaving these people out to dry. Interestingly, I found this interesting in the world of surveillance. Europe is using smartphone data as a weapon to deport refugees. European leaders need to bring immigration numbers down, and metadata on smartphones could be just what they need to start sending migrants back. What are they doing? They're going into people's phone histories and saying, oh, yeah, this phone, they're using their location data. Look, across the continent, migrants are being confronted by a booming mobile forensics industry that specializes in extracting a smartphone's messages, location history, and even WhatsApp data. That information can potentially be turned against the phone owners themselves. Now, governments are using migrant smartphones to deport them. Okay. Classic example of the smartphone being a double-edged sword, cutting both ways, right? Vastly increases your capability to do shit, right? Amazing tools, but they track everything you do. They arguably irradiate you with frequencies that turn you into a mind-numbed zombie that can't do anything but stare at their phone, and they can be used to track you, Realistically, in the world today, if you really think about it, pretty much any crime could be solved with smartphone data, given the fact that everybody's got them in their pockets all the time. The locations are saved. So it's interesting stuff. But I don't know what's going to happen there. South Koreans channeling Trump. Fake refugees get out. Trump was not the only one. Not a big fan of Trump. But in the good news department, coming from Digital Journal, June 26, 2018, a startup may have cracked the secret to fusion energy. In the world of physics, commercially viable fusion energy has been just on the horizon for nearly 8 decades. Now, a new Washington-based startup, Agni Energy Incorporated, may have cracked the secret to nuclear fusion, bringing it closer to reality. Okay, I'm pretty sure they already figured out how to do nuclear fusion a long time ago, just like Nikola Tesla figured out how to tap into the vast reserves of energy stored in Earth's ionosphere, given the fact that our planet is a giant capacitor, aka a battery. And, you tap into that. I don't know if it would work. I don't know if it would be a good idea, but I do know that we should probably be having a public discussion about suppressed energy technologies if we really want to solve the problems on this planet. We can talk until we're blue in the face about all the issues that the mainstream media wants us to focus on, but in reality, they're not playing with a full deck. They're not giving us the full story, and that's where guys like me come in. If you want to support my work, you can, and I would certainly appreciate that. Head on over there to patreon.com/MaxMogan. You can join my 15 patrons. Thank you so much. I'm trying to get the show going at least once a week, hopefully twice a week. It is a lot of work. I do try to stay informed, but, just like y'all, I got to make some money. So I can safely say that if I can get these numbers up, if I can make this a full-time job, if I can stop pounding nails and hustling and doing dirtbag conversions on the side and picking up odd jobs here and there, I'll do this full-time. But if I can't, I'm going to have to keep plugging away at other things, cutting into my ability to do this. Or you can hit me over there at paypal.me/MaxMogan and pony up there as well. That'd be great. You can even get me over there on Venmo now. I'm on Venmo. You can send me some cryptocurrencies, or don't do any of that. Just keep doing you. Certainly don't put yourself in the poorhouse trying to support my show. But I have to say, each one of these videos will get, a couple thousand views. If I could get $1 out of everybody, I could hire an assistant. I could have a staff. We could start a legitimate news organization here off of a couple $1,000 a month. But we ain't there yet, and I don't expect we'll ever get there, but could. So on that note, I'm signing off for now. Well, I'm going to go through the comments real quick. What do y'all got? Peter GM Petro saying 52 card pickup, anyone? Yeah. John Neptune Adams, thank you. It's good to see you again as well. Daniel, we got our own big club, brother, and we are the founders of it. So there you go. Kimberly Walden, thank you. I appreciate the beautiful flower, the vote of confidence there. Truth. Don Neptune chiming in there. I had a dumb phone until December 2016. I only bought a smartphone for citizen journalism. John, I'm in the same boat. Pretty much exactly the same. I bought a smartphone. I went out to Standing Rock Thanksgiving 2016, and I had to go up to, I couldn't do anything there with a computer. There's no way to broadcast, but I found out with the Verizon smartphone, I had good service there. So I drove up to Bismarck, bought a smartphone. Now, just 4 smartphones later, they sure are breakable, aren't they? Planned obsolescence. They love to break. But now I'm stuck staring at a smartphone way too much. And I have to say, I don't feel as fully present and engaged in reality when I got a smartphone in my pocket. I also want to add, just as an aside to y'all, you might think I'm really lazy. Like, oh, why doesn't that guy do a show all the time? But truth be told, like, I have a hard time with technology. I have a hard time sitting in front of the computer or staring at a smartphone where my brain gets real fuzzy. I get really confused. I'm a pretty smart guy, pretty sensible person. I can talk somebody's ear off. I can connect complicated things and come up with a conclusion or a theory on something, a hypothesis, whatever. But seems like the more time I spend sitting in front of a computer or staring at a smartphone, the dumber I get and the more difficulty I have sleeping. So take that to the bank. Do with it what you will. And on that note, I think I'm signing off. J. Scott North, thank you so much. Dawn, Neptune Adams agreeing with that smartphone thing. It's a Trojan horse. Think about it when you, I don't know, maybe we should go back to dumb phones or no phones at all. But then again, how are we going to communicate with one another? It's a pickle, and we're all in it. But I tell you what, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm glad you're all here, and I sure appreciate having an audience to chat it up with. On that note, I'm signing off for now. Remember, the media, the mainstream media especially, is designed to distract us, to divide us, to depress us, to deter us from taking meaningful action in our own lives, and to discourage us from having a positive worldview. So, don't let the bastards get you down. Take care of yourself, the ones you love. Real life is where the real action is. That's why I'm not trying to do this show every day. Because you don't need this show every day. You see the big trends. You see the meta trends. The thing that matters, right now we got a bunch of viewers. Go out there and be the change, right? Channeling Gandhi. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Yeah, why not? Let's do it. And on that note, I'm going to go do that. And I hope you do too. Your boy Moog, you're beautiful. Alpine, Wyoming. Wake Up, Wyoming. July 6th, 2018. Talk to y'all real soon. One love. Peace.